What's up, horror people? Just a really quick movie review of a horror movie that I saw last week that was really, really excellent. In fact, I think probably one of the best horror movies that I've seen, gosh, in the last 5 years or so, certainly in that top 10. I've pulled it up here. I'm not good at pronouncing things. The name of it is Aterrados. It's from Argentina, but it's the English translation as it's gone over as Terrified. And I watched it on Shudder. If you don't know what Shudder is a streaming service that I think is managed by the Turner Classic Movies Company. And it's such a great deal. I mean, I'm not going to turn into a commercial for Shudder, but if you're someone that likes horror movies, it's a really good deal. I think it's $4.99 a month, unless it's gone up a little bit, and it's rare horror movies that are hard to find, newer horror movies, but also original content. And in the case of Aterrados or Terrified, foreign horror movies, so that you can't really get in different markets. And so that's where I watched it on here. I think it's also available on Prime to rent or a couple other places. It is well worth a rental. It is a movie. It's in my wheelhouse because I like paranormal stuff. I like ghosts. I like when movie trusts its audience enough to do some things and not explain a lot of them. And it's a typical 3-act structure for this kind of horror movie. And the first, I'm not going to spoil a lot, but the first act is something's going on in this cluster of houses in this neighborhood in Argentina that is paranormal. There are neighbors that are having weird things happening to them. Someone's being haunted and he's trying to record these hauntings, so in a very paranormal activity kind of way. Meanwhile, someone's hearing voices in the next door neighbor, and just weird shit is happening all over. A dog that someone killed, Pet Cemetery like, is resurrected for no reason. And so all these things are happening, and meanwhile there's kind of a major event that happens that can't be explained, and so the police get involved. And once the police get involved, the real kind of second act structure comes in, which is that you have these, I'm not going to say paranormal investigators, they're more like kind of the Golden Girls meets Ghostbusters sort of thing. There are these older people who are investigating unexplained phenomenon. And so they talk to one of the people that's involved in these series of hauntings and try and get his permission so that they could stay in the house that was supposedly having this activity. In this cluster of 3 houses, they all stay in a different one. And then in the third act, well, shit goes down, and it's really fascinating and scary and weird. And one of the things I really like about this movie, and it's what I like about The Shining, and I think it's what makes horror scary, is that it resists that urge to info dump. A lot of these movies, whether it's Insidious or whatever, you can think of your favorite ghost movie or Ringu or Grudge or whatever, the 3-act structure basically breaks down to like really scary shit happens, and that's the meat of the movie. I mean, Insidious in the first couple acts is maybe the scariest movie of all time. And then in the second act, we start to unravel more of the story. And in the third act, it's just like someone that's like, listen, I want to explain what's going on here and how to stop it. And that's every movie. And I really love those first 2 acts, right? That's what really draws me to paranormal movies. And it's always that third act that turns me off. And it's always this explanation and this, then we just have this whole dump of information, and the rest of the movie just gets really clunky. And movies that don't do that or resist that or play with it, I really like. I mean, The Shining is a really good example of that in the third act, where it tries to explain things and then at the end pulls the rug out from it. Hereditary does a really good job of this, except for the last 68 seconds, where it's just like, they couldn't resist the info dump. They put it all at the very end. So Terrified does a really good job where it doesn't try to... there's a moment when you're like, oh, here it comes. And then there's someone who's in a position of authority that's like, let me explain to you what I think is going on. But then it does a really clever thing with that and doesn't exactly, I think actually subverts your expectations in a really cool way. I don't want to give it away, but I almost stood up and cheered when I was watching it, because I was like, there are things in this movie that will stay with you for months. I mean, I've watched it last week, but still, it's haunting. The second act structure, I won't go into a lot of detail, but it involves a little boy, and I can't get that out of my head. What's going on with that little boy in that second act? There's a scene early in the movie in the first act that I can't get out of my head. It's burned into my head. The very, 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 very ending of the movie, I sincerely disliked, but it was such a good movie that didn't even ruin it for me. I really think that if you're someone who likes horror movies, you're someone that likes ghost movies, here's something. It's a 2017 movie. It slipped past my radar. But since it's been on Shudder, I'll tell you, man, all of my horror people have been like, have you seen this movie? Have you seen this movie? So I finally saw it, and holy shit, definitely worth your time. Worth it just to get Shudder for this, I would say. But you can certainly rent it or find it on streaming sites, and it is a 2 thumbs up Andy recommendation. Hope you guys are doing good. Miss you very much, and sending you love.